48.40, Buddha said, monks, there are these 5 faculties, Indriya. But 5, the pleasure faculty, Sukha Indriya, the pain faculty, Dukkha Indriya, the joy faculty, Somanassa, the displeasure or grief faculty, Domanassa, the equanimity faculty, Upekkha. Here monks, while a monk is dwelling diligent, ardent and resolute, there arises in him the pain faculty. Pain faculty refers to the bodily pain. He understands thus, there has arisen in me this pain faculty. That has a basis, a source, a causal formation, a condition. It is impossible for that pain faculty to arise without a basis, without a source, without a causal formation, without a condition. He understands the pain faculty. He understands the origin of the pain faculty. He understands the cessation of the pain faculty. And he understands where the arisen pain faculty ceases without remainder. And where does the arisen pain faculty cease without remainder? Here monks, secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, a monk enters and dwells in the first jhana, which is accompanied by thought directed and sustained, with delight and happiness born of seclusion. And it is here that the arisen pain faculty ceases without remainder. This monk is called a monk who has understood the cessation of the pain faculty. He directs his mind accordingly. Stop here for a moment. So here, this part says that the bodily pain ceases entirely when a person enters the first jhana. As I mentioned last night, when a person enters the first jhana, he is secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states. Secluded from sensual pleasures means he does not pay attention to the sense doors. He has withdrawn into his mind. And then secluded from unwholesome states means unwholesome states of mind. So because he has gone into his mind, he doesn't pay attention to his body. That's why the bodily pain ceases without remainder. Here monks, while a monk is dwelling diligent, ardent and resolute, there arises in him the displeasure or grief faculty. This displeasure or grief refers to the mental pain. He understands thus, there has arisen in me this pleasure or grief faculty. That has a basis, a source, a causal formation, a condition. It is impossible for that displeasure or grief faculty to arise without a basis, without a source, without a causal formation, without a condition. He understands the displeasure faculty. He understands the origin of the displeasure faculty. He understands the cessation of the displeasure faculty. And he understands where the arisen displeasure faculty ceases without remainder. And where does the arisen displeasure faculty cease without remainder? With the subsiding of thought directed and sustained, vitakka and vichara, the monk enters and dwells in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and unification of mind, is without thought directed and sustained, and has delight and happiness born of concentration. And it is here that the arisen displeasure faculty ceases without remainder. This monk is called a monk who has understood the cessation of the displeasure faculty. He directs his mind accordingly. Stop here for a moment. So here, when a monk enters the second jhana, he has internal confidence and unification of mind, and has delight and happiness born of concentration. So the mind is very delighted and very happy. That's why the any mental discomfort or pain ceases without remainder in the second jhana. And the second jhana is a state where the mind is quite strong. It's because it is strong that no thoughts can arise. The pleasure faculty. Here monks, while a monk is dwelling diligent, ardent and resolute, there arises in him the pleasure faculty. pleasure faculty here refers to the bodily pleasure. He understands thus, there has arisen in me this pleasure faculty. That has a basis, a source, a causal formation, a condition. It is impossible for that pleasure faculty to arise without a basis, without a source, without a causal formation, without a condition. He understands the pleasure faculty, he understands the origin of the pleasure faculty, he understands the cessation of the pleasure faculty, and he understands where the arisen pleasure faculty ceases without remainder. And where does the arisen pleasure faculty cease without remainder? With the fading away as well of delight, among dwells equanimous and collected and clearly aware, experiences happiness with the body. He enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the noble ones declare, he is equanimous, collected, one who dwells happily. And it is here that the arisen pleasure faculty ceases without remainder. This monk is called a monk who has understood the cessation of the pleasure faculty. He directs his mind accordingly. Here, when a monk enters the third jhana, the body pleasure faculty ceases. But you see in the description of the third jhana, it says he experiences happiness with the body. This happiness with the body is the mental happiness, not the bodily happiness. So because it is a higher state of jhana compared to the second jhana, he experiences the mental happiness, but not the coarser bodily happiness. So these two types of happiness is found in the second jhana, bodily happiness and mental happiness. But when he attains the third jhana, because he's going deeper into his mind, then the bodily pleasure ceases and he experiences only the mental happiness. Here monks, while a monk is dwelling diligent, ardent and resolute, there arises in him the joy faculty. The joy mental refers to the mental pleasure. He understands thus, there has arisen in me this joy faculty that has a basis, a source, a causal formation, a condition. It is impossible for that joy faculty to arise without a basis, without a source, without a causal formation, without a condition. He understands the joy faculty. He understands the origin of the joy faculty. He understands the cessation of the joy faculty. And he understands where the arisen joy faculty ceases without remainder. And where does the arisen joy faculty cease without remainder? With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous passing away of joy and displeasure, a monk enters and dwells in the fourth jhana, which is neither painful nor pleasant, with complete purification of sati and upekkha, with complete purification of recollection and equanimity. And it is here that the arisen joy faculty ceases without remainder. This monk is called a monk who has understood the cessation of the joy faculty. He directs his mind accordingly. So in the fourth jhana, even that mental happiness ceases because in this state of the fourth jhana, there is complete purification of sati and upekkha. That means sati and upekkha is very strong. So because of upekkha, equanimity is so strong that the joy faculty, that mental pleasure is eliminated by the equanimity, upekkha. So in the fourth jhana, you notice here, there is complete purification of sati. You cannot have purer sati than in the fourth jhana. There's I've seen some book by some vipassana monk that says he says there's no benefit of attaining jhana. He says when you're in the state of jhana, there's no sati. But you look at the description of the third jhana, it is said he enters and dwells in the third jhana, of which the Aryans declare he is equanimous, mindful or collected, one who dwells happily. This word here, mindful, the Pali word is satima. He has sati. So even in the third jhana, the sati is quite pronounced. Actually, even the first and second jhana, he already has sati. But in the third jhana, it's quite pronounced. In the fourth jhana, it is the most pure sati, completely pure sati. The Pali word is upekha sati parisuddhi. Parisuddhi is completely pure, or utterly pure. So the sati and the upekha is utterly pure in the fourth jhana. That's why the joy faculty ceases. Here monks, while a monk is dwelling diligent, ardent and resolute, there arises in him the equanimity faculty. He understands thus, there has arisen in me this equanimity faculty. That has a basis, a source, a causal formation, a condition. It is impossible for that equanimity faculty to arise without a basis, without a source, without a causal formation, without a condition. He understands the equanimity faculty. He understands the origin of the equanimity faculty. He understands the cessation of the equanimity faculty. And he understands where the arisen equanimity faculty ceases without remainder. And where does the arisen equanimity faculty cease without remainder? Here monks, having completely transcended the base of neither perception nor non-perception, a monk enters and dwells in the cessation of perception and feeling. And it is here that the arisen equanimity faculty ceases without remainder. This monk is called a monk who has understood the cessation of the equanimity faculty. He directs his mind accordingly. This equanimity, although it is neither painful nor pleasurable, but it is still a feeling. It is still a feeling. So the only time when this feeling can cease is when a person enters the state of cessation, when cessation of perception and feeling. When there is cessation of perception and feeling, it means that consciousness also ceases. So in that state, there is no feeling. That's why the equanimity also ceases without remainder. The Buddha and the suttas, when the Buddha was very old, 80 years old, the body was giving him pain. The body was about to break up. So every now and then he feel very, very intense pain. So he said that he has to enter this cessation of perception and feeling. He enters this deep samadhi state where all feelings and consciousness ceases. Then he has no pain. And then when he withdraws from that state, maybe for a few hours, there's no pain, but after a few hours, probably the pain will come back again. So this sutta tells you that in the first jhana, the bodily pain ceases. In the second jhana, the mental pain ceases. In the third jhana, the bodily pleasure ceases. In the fourth jhana, the mental pleasure ceases. And in the highest, the cessation of perception and feeling, then even equanimity ceases.